Hello, everyone. I'm sorry it's been a while. Real life caught up with me, and I also grew a bit tired of bold action for a while there, having lost the two tournaments that I really wanted to win during the autumn. Um, I am doing a tutorial here. I'm at my school. There is some Christmas decorations still here. Um, and this one is for Caspar, and it's a tactical tutorial about how to run and what tactically to do with transport cavalry. So lists that have a lot of transports in them. Um, and I'll start by going through what type of transports and what units that are worth transporting, and then maybe talk about how to do that. I've set up a small like fake table on my whiteboard here, so I can illustrate some of my points. But let me start by talking about what transports there are available and how to use them. Um, to my mind, there are three types of transport, and I can see that this is very, very small for you guys. I'll just pick up my camera here. There are three types of transport in my mind. There are the trucks, there is the armored carrier, and there's the jeep. So when you have a truck, um, the idea is to fill it up because trucks have a transport capacity, and you pay points for how much transport capacity you get. So, to my mind, at least, you need to pick the correct truck to the thing that you're going to transport. So, already in your list building, you're thinking about, well, what is it that I want this transport to transport? What is it that I want it to do? And thereby you pick the correct truck. Although some lists have difficulty in sort of shuffling that around, where they maybe only have like one type of truck. Most do have several types that they can pick and choose from. Maybe especially the British and the Soviets and the Americans have different truck sizes that they can really go into. The Germans also have different truck sizes, although some of them they don't really call them trucks. So trucks, I would recommend them for the larger units, and we'll talk about which units that actually works in a truck in a minute. But that's what I would do, I think. Um, so yeah, then we have the armored carrier. That's the second point. Um, Armored carriers are typically have a lower transport capacity, but they act as sort of a mini tank. Um, they are typically 7 plus. Maybe they're half tracks, which is a good thing because you get extra turns with a half track. So the German Hanomag is basically very, very good, but it's very expensive. And most transports are very expensive for what they can do. And most transports also have, armored transports also have the detriment that they are open topped. So you will get pinned and your troops in it will get pinned. So that is something that you're going to have to figure out how to deal with. Some armies deal really well with that. Brits can really make lists where they can deal with that using, for instance, the national rule vengeance. Or you can have lieutenants close by, or you can have your troops be veteran or whatever. But think about it, because if you have them open top, your transports, they will get pinned. Or if they're soft skinned trucks, they will get pinned. The benefit of having armored transport is, of course, that small arms fire cannot kill you. So the enemy will need to designate some of their anti-tank weapons to kill that transport, which might be difficult. So armored carriers, yeah. Because most armored carriers have a limited transport capacity, they're not well suited for all types of transported cavalry. I'm calling this cavalry because that's what it is, right? You're putting men into some sort of transport. They're being transported to where they need to fight, just like cavalry did. So, yeah. Jeeps. Jeeps are only well suited to very specific units. It is the flamer unit, or it is the anti-tank hunting unit with a Panzerschreck or a bazooka, what have you. Some people, I've seen some people do this, use it to put like other anti-tank stuff in it, maybe an anti-tank rifle, so that you can run the Jeep up along one flank, get into the flank of that tank and use the anti-tank rifle in the flank of a light tank. Might be worth it. I've also seen people do it with, for instance, the Soviet dog teams, where you have the range of the Jeep, then you have the dog team walking out, then you have the dogs firing. So that really gives a lot of range. Yeah. The issue for all of these is that most of the time you're going to be sitting and waiting in ambush, waiting for the final 2 dice of a game to sling up your attack. I'll come back to that when we talk about tactics for how to do this. But that is an issue, right? Because that will not happen that often. So if you're basing a whole army on troops and transports, you can't wait for that. You're going to have to do something else. Now, let me see, and I hope this is not backwards to you guys. If we're talking about what we have in the transport unit itself, we have different types of units that I think are suited to being transported. We have close combat troops that are designated for melee. That might be Gurkhas, that might be Maoris, or it might be fanatic troops. We have flamer teams. They're also well suited, especially for the Jeep. Panzerfausts. If you have Panzerfaust in your units, that's a good idea to throw them in, because the Panzerfaust has a very short range and your transport will increase your range, right? Engineers with flamers or Fausts, or I've seen a lot of people using both. And then troops armed with SMGs. That is also a good idea to put that in a transport, because these have relatively short range, so you need to move up to the enemy to engage them. Some troops even, especially Soviet combat engineers with body armor on them, they're very slow. So they really benefit from having something that transports them up to where they can be effective. So SMGs is a thing that you might consider. Because the transport simply becomes their ability to move up into the table where they are needed. The final thing that I would consider is if you are min-maxing, if you're like running very small units of inexperienced shirkers, for instance. These shirkers are not worth anything, right? They are really not worth anything. Why not put them in a transport? They will make your transport not run away at the end of a turn. And in many games, they will make your transport scoring because they are an infantry unit. So you can use them to stay in the transport, sit next to an objective, and then run up to the objective at the end of the game and simply score that objective. Most shirkers will not move if they have pins or whatever, but if they're in the transport can help them move. So that's an idea. It's a bit expensive just to capture an objective, but it can be done. Right. So I talked about if you have one transport, most often what you will see is you'll see that one transport being placed behind something, maybe a forest. Like here would be a good place for me to place my Jeep with a flamethrower in it. There's a forest here, and there's a road nearby, and there's some open stuff. There are a few houses, so I can drive up my Jeep. Depending on which way I want to attack, I can drive into these two sectors here and simply unload a flamethrower team and kill something, right? That's how you would use one transport with one of these units. What if you have a whole army? Well, that becomes different. The main benefit of having an army where you have 3, 4, maybe even 5 transports with some of these units in them is that you're very, very mobile. So you need to be able to do a swing where you want to hit most of the enemy in one flank where they can't concentrate their force on you. So what I will do is I will try to make the enemy spread out a bit. If I can encourage the enemy to make a broad deployment where they're spread out all across their deployment zone, I'll do that. You can do that by different things. You can do it with artillery observers. You can do it with multi-launchers. That will encourage them to spread out. And then what you do is you deploy in the center, preferably behind something. But if you can't find, then cover can be enough. Just as long as you have hard cover long range, 6s, he's not going to hit you, at least not most of the time. So I would deploy centrally if you can, behind some cover. Again, preferably behind something that's completely covered. But if you're deploying everything up to, for instance, this forest here, then he's not going to deploy broadly. He's going to focus as well. So that is usually not possible. If you can, though, if like in your deployment that he gets to deploy most of his stuff first, yes, do deploy on one flank. Otherwise, deploy in the center. And then, once you are certain that one of his flanks is pinned down, that is when you move up. You need one flank to be pinned down by your other elements of your army, because you don't just have this transported cavalry, right? You maybe have a tank, you maybe have some artillery, you maybe have some multi-launchers, something. You need something to make sure that he has used his dice for one turn and one turn only. During that turn, you've already seen, okay, if I'm going to move up and attack this part, I'm going to go here. I'm going to run all my trucks or drive them if I can up to that point. Then I will unload my troops into this courtyard, and then I'm ready to assault next turn here. So that's how you're thinking. You're thinking, okay, where's my transport going to go? Where are the troops in that transport? Where are they going to go? They need to be in cover there, preferably someplace where they can at the same time shoot at what they're trying to charge next turn. If you're going the other way, then this forest is perfect. You're driving up to that forest, you're unloading your troops either behind the forest or in the forest, depending on what you have. If you have troops that shoot, in the forest. If you don't want them to shoot but want them to charge, behind the forest, just peeking out. One guy outside the forest, the rest of them behind it. So that next turn you can go around and charge, or you can move up and shoot. So that's what you're looking for. You're looking for your center to go to one flank, and just that flank. Don't split it. Throw everything at one flank. What you will do is you'll overwhelm that one flank. That flank will collapse. Yes, he might kill one, maybe two of your units, but you have 4 or 5. So, and you will get in and you will start killing his troops. And the other flank, depending on which way you're going, will not be able to get there in time and support him. So you will take out half his army with most of yours. And that's really what I'm looking for when I play this. I'm looking to go approximately 60 to 70% of my army against one flank, against maybe 40% of his army. I'll not always choose the weakest part of his army. Sometimes I'll choose to hit his 60% with my 70%. Just as long as I know that I can hit him harder than he can hit back, depending on what you're bringing, right? If he has only got LMGs and infantry with rifles there, bringing up your flamethrowers will definitely clear that out, right? If you can get them in. So, yeah. So that's what I'm looking for. Some people will try to do this from an outflank. They will sort of have most of their cavalry on outflank and then bring them on from one or maybe two sides. I think that is a mistake, unless you are playing key positions where you can make sure that the objectives are close to the edge of the board where you want them to be, preferably again in cover, so you can bring your outflankers onto those objectives. I would not do this. I find it's too insecure, and a good player will be waiting for you in ambush, where your outflankers will not be that effective. They'll be either pinned, or their truck will get shot, or they will get shot when they come onto the board. So, yeah, I would do the central deployment and then rush one flank. That is my tactical advice for you guys, and that is the tactics for how to use transport cavalry. Cheers! Oh, and Merry Christmas.